Alright, so AOC is on a kick now to cancel all student loan debt. She's been on it for a while. And people have been voicing their concerns and criticisms and have been saying why this is a bad idea and why it's not fair and unequally benefits some while punishes others. And you would think that that would resonate with AOC, as fairness and equity seem to be her thing, but apparently not if it stands in the way of her buying votes from people. But AOC has two options here with this tweet. Either she really just does not understand the argument that people are making, either it's just beyond her comprehension, which, to be fair to her, it isn't terribly simple. You do have to stop and think about it for a moment until you say, oh, okay, I see what you're saying, which I will try and explain in a way that she understands in just a moment. But that's her first option. Maybe she just doesn't understand. Or her other option is that she does understand and she is purposefully mischaracterizing and really making a terrible caricature of the argument being made, a downright disingenuous mocking of the argument to be truthful, and of the people criticizing the idea of student loan debt forgiveness. So she apparently thinks people are against student loan debt forgiveness because things were bad for them, so they should stay bad for everyone else. Yeah, that is not what people are saying. This is a gross misrepresentation of what people are saying. I am perfectly happy to see other people do well, and I'm thrilled when people get out of debt, and I mean that. And everyone I talk to, mostly college students as I work in higher ed, I tell them to avoid debt like the plague because I do not want to see other people in economic hardship. But here's the thing she is not understanding. It is not just that people who paid off their debt by being responsible, hardworking, and frugal for years. It is not just that they don't benefit from this, which is unequal treatment of people, again, like I said, if that matters to AOC. I thought that was her thing. It's not just that, but it's that by forgiving student loan debt, you have actively made those decisions to be responsible, frugal, thrifty, and to work like crazy. You've turned those decisions into the worst financial mistake of their life, and this has terrible implications, which I'll get to in a second. But before that, just think back to that guy that confronted Elizabeth Warren, where he said to her, hey, I worked like crazy, I saved every penny I could so my daughter didn't have to take out a loan. Do I get paid all that money that I saved, and do I get paid that money back that I saved and then spent on her education? And Elizabeth Warren said, of course not. And that rightfully pissed that guy off. He has every reason and every right to be infuriated by that response. If you remember, he referenced a buddy of his who partied and wasted his time and didn't pay off his debt. So that guy now gets a great deal because he didn't take his debt seriously. So the people who behaved responsibly, it is not just that they don't benefit from loan forgiveness now. It is that you are unequivocally telling them, hey, you know how you worked like crazy, and remember when you went without, and you lived in a smaller apartment, and you drove a $500 junker off Craigslist so you pay off your debt? That was the worst decision of your life. That was the biggest financial mistake you are likely ever going to make in your life. And not only that, you see that person over there that drinks overpriced coffee every day and took months off of work to go find themselves and frequents the bars with their buddies to have a good time. They're not even being remotely as responsible and mature as you're being, but holy crap, did they make a much better financial decision than you did. Literally, that's not sarcasm. You shot yourself in the foot by working that hard and being that frugal and not living beyond your means, because you could have been living like this other person and you still have debt, take unjustified vacations, waste money at bars. And as long as you didn't waste your money paying down your loans, once we forgive it, you're going to be in a far better financial position than if you had economized, worked hard, and paid off your debt. Because any money you otherwise would have now that you didn't put towards your debt, you'd be able to keep. But unfortunately for you, you did put money towards your debt, and now that's just a loss for you. Sorry about that. You should have been more irresponsible, quite literally. You would be better off financially now if you had been more irresponsible. So for AOC to say this is just people who had it tough and want it to be tough for everyone else, for her to put it like that is a downright disgusting mischaracterization of the point being made. People have every right to be infuriated over this. You are 100% unequivocally, retroactively punishing those that worked hard and behaved responsibly, and you are 100% retroactively rewarding people who were irresponsible. And this has horrible implications too, because there is one very crystal clear lesson in all of this, and that is that looking to the future, you would be a complete buffoon to not only pay off your debt, but you actually want to take on as much debt as you can. And this leads me to my next point of why this idea is so terrible and AOC somehow just does not see it. Because here's another terrible side effect of all this that we will see. Moving forward, something like student loan debt forgiveness will send a very strong message encouraging people to take on even more debt. And in fact, the worse the situation is, the better it is to take on even more debt, because the higher the probability the government steps in and forgives it. And by the way, the word forgives is in quotes, as this is all done with other people's money. Just a little side note there. But with government forgiving debt, then the worse the situation is, the more debt you have, the more resources, products, and services you can receive by financing and getting into debt over, the more you stand to gain when AOC comes in to forgive it all with my money. And here's the real kicker. The less you've given any thought to the consequences of the debt you've taken on, the better. And you certainly don't want to do anything about it. I mean, you only want to do enough so you're not thrown into prison or something. That's it, because decades of hard work and responsibility, what many of us have done, including myself, that is literally now the worst financial and personal decision I have made in my entire life if student loan debt forgiveness goes through. And here's another thing. What does this say to middle school and high school students out there who are capable of understanding what I'm saying, unlike AOC? You don't think it will dawn on them that being responsible is for suckers now? But not only that, being responsible is actually a bad decision, because any money you put towards debt is just a dead loss, and that's money you'd rather have in your pocket later when the debt's forgiven anyway. And being irresponsible is actually a good decision now, quite literally. If you were smarter, if you're in high school now, if you were smarter, you would be saying, no, why would I want to do the responsible thing? That's actually a bad decision. That's the situation that people like AOC has set up. Because I can guarantee you that it will dawn on them, and it probably already has, because I've mentioned this before in other videos. I work in higher education. I speak with and interact with hundreds of students every semester. I cannot tell you how many times when the topic of student loan debt forgiveness comes up. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard them say how they plan on going out to bars and restaurants and they're not going to look at the bill, just buy. Or that they've been kicking themselves because they buy overpriced coffee every day instead of some lower quality coffee they can get through their meal plan every day. But if student loan debt forgiveness goes through, they don't have to care, and they won't even try to make a better fiscal decision. What does it matter? Again, in fact, the person who does go with the worst coffee and who didn't go to the restaurants and bars all the time because they were saving money when the bill comes due, well, they lost out big time. They should not have been that responsible. They would have a better life if they had not been that responsible. That's the argument we are making, AOC. So get it right, because a lot depends on it. You do not create a healthy, prosperous society by making irresponsibility an actively better choice than being responsible. But that is all for now. Like and subscribe, and take it easy.